Welcome to the Calgary Sessions. This is episode number 72. I'm your host, Jeff Humphreys. Today's guest, my buddy Tui, hooked this one up. So thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. This brand has been, I was aware of it. I don't know when, but I definitely knew of it. It'll be interesting to see if there's when you get into this, like, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's what it was. But anyways, this is a very cool local brand. So go ahead, name and who you are.
Adam Thompson, and I'm the founder of Friday Sock Company.
Awesome. When you say that, I'm sure a lot of people are like, oh, no way.
Yeah.
It hit. I don't know when it hit. You'll probably have a timeline. And then, fast forward to here we are today. And I'm sure it's in a totally different place. Yeah. But we all kind of have this moment of time like, oh yeah, it was a big thing. And for a long time now, I'm sure it's at a different phase. Yeah. Which, it'll be cool to hear this.
It is interesting. It kind of goes, especially early on in your entrepreneurial journey. You think it's it's bigger than, because it's all happening and you're selling to stores suddenly, and you have people that are ordering and reordering, and you get some stuff on social media, and then all that kind of stuff. It doesn't die away; it stays, but to a certain extent. But you become more of a company, and now you have this sort of. I don't know what you call it, but it dies down, and you kind of are in a spot where you're like, okay, so now what do we do? Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. And so we've been dealing with that a little bit, and I can get into like what we are doing now for sure to kind of diversify and continue to grow. Yeah,
and that's why this will be a really cool conversation, because I want to I've been on this bit of a tangent lately talking about highlights. Yep. People always see highlights and they're like, oh, that's all we really understand. This conversation, I really want to hear from you. Once we get there, of you win these awards, you get all this exposure, and then what? Yeah. And so that'll be an interesting conversation once we get there.
For sure.
The gist of the show, you've seen a couple of them with the guys. I like the guests to go back as far as they want to go. Where they grew up, how they grew up, what inspired you, how your parents influenced you. So take it back as far as you want to go, and then I'm going to drag you along.
All right. Yeah. No, I was born in Kingston, Ontario. So I grew up in a really small town called Henderson. Maybe about 100 people in the town and then surrounding area. I went back a couple summers ago, and I just couldn't believe that I had my formative years there. But
from when to when? Like, when did you?
I left Ontario when I was 14.
Okay.
So moved.
But in that small town?
Yeah, very small town until I was 14.
Okay.
We had a pond that we'd play hockey on and shovel, and there was nobody kind of in the town, so it was all up to me to create my own world. So I think I developed a bit of an imagination during that time. And we moved out to, it was tough upbringing, like small town. My dad owned a construction company. We'd spend our weekends clearing brush so that he could build a house, and then an hour and a half long bus ride, all that kind of stuff. Grew our own food, like our own animals and stuff like that. We had as a little bit of a hobby farm.
Wow.
We moved out to Cremona, Alberta, so by Water Valley, and that was 14 to around 17.
Why'd you come this way?
General economy was not so great in Ontario, and my dad being a carpenter, he wanted to move us out somewhere where there was more stuff going on.
Yeah, for the family just in general, and for maybe more job opportunities. Or?
Yeah, maybe like he had, but it was more for us. He just saw that we would have more of a bit of a better time in a place that had a growing economy at the time. Right? It was. I don't know what's going on back there now. Could be great, but at the time it was kind of like let's go out and give you guys a better future, or where might be able to get one.
Brothers and sisters?
Yeah, two sisters, two older sisters.
So it was a pretty big move to come this far west.
Yeah, it was. We had a pony. My mom had a miniature horse pony. We put it in a horse trailer, and we had two vehicles. It was like a caravan, two vehicles pulling horse trailers. We had CB or walkie-talkies talking along the way. Couldn't find a house immediately, so we ended up camping in Ghost Lake for, I'd say, 3 months until we took possession of the house that we ended up buying. So that was a pretty fun summer when I was 14.
What when you move, you're 14-ish.
Yeah.
So what grade is that? That's grade 9,
10.
8, grade 10?
Yeah.
You were done grade 10?
No, just starting grade 10.
So moving all the way across country.
Yeah.
Interesting time. Grade 10 here is obviously going to high school, so it's a big change.
Yeah, and it's crazy because when you're that age, you go to a new school. fashion was a little bit different. Not that when you're 14, who cares? But like, I was just dressing a little bit different than the kids that I went to. It's a small town as well. So, so it was a difficult entry into a new reality where I knew everybody before and I had all these lifelong friends to nobody, right? Yeah. So I had to carve my way, and I think that's probably why I started to learn how to skateboard and stuff like that. So,
was it hard for everybody? Like for your brothers and sisters your sisters to come here and start over, and like, how long does it take to actually get into a groove? Like, is grade 10 horrible for you?
It was horrible, yeah. It was pretty bad memories. But my I overcame it in the end, and I did make a lot of good friends. Yep. And then my older sister had an easier time with it. I think she got in a relationship fairly quickly, and then that person had lots of, which probably helped shelter me a little bit at the time. And then my oldest sister stayed back in Ontario and came out, I think, a year later. So she was out of school by then. So she just kind of started working, and you know how that goes. So.
Do you what kind of personality did you have back then? Were you like introvert, extrovert? Were you like
extroverted? Like I have you dig up old things that your parents have, and there was letters from the school saying, we think your kid has, some attention deficit problems, and you need to seek out, maybe intervening with some medication or something, right? So I wasn't like hyperactive, but I was I was a class clown, so I'd always, trouble make.
Was that like a pressure relief? Like being in a new situation, just like, being a little uncomfortable, and then the card you play is.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. It was, for me, it's always been about, I think, attention. Like I just always wanted to get attention. Maybe that's from like a deep desire to find love somewhere. If I got really deep, I don't know where it comes from, but no, I love also making people happy. It's like one of my favorite things to do to make somebody laugh really hard, right? So,
which is interesting. Right before we started this, you kind of dropped a little like nuggets. We'll get there, but so what does high school look like? After you kind of get settled, what does the rest of it look like? Are you working? Are you playing sports? What are you doing?
So I was an avid runner, so I did track and field, and at one point I got third in the province for I think it was the 3,000 meters.
What's the distance?
Yeah, did some pole vaulting and stuff like that.
Cool.
And then I was skateboarding at the same time, and I kind of went down that pathway, and then running kind of went to the sidelines. I was grade 10, halfway through just starting grade 11, and then I left to work for a year. There was a hay plant down the road, so they make hay. Yeah. They make it in smaller bales, and they ship it off in shipping containers. And I was like, okay, sweet. So I'll just like work for a year and earn some money.
In the middle of high school?
Yeah, because I wanted to buy a car and wanted to do some stuff, right? So I was like, I'll just take a year off, and I can always come back. So I did that.
And that was the thing? Like you were allowed to do that?
No, not really.
Okay, because I've never, when I was in high school and like anybody that I've never heard anybody say there was an option to.
No, it wasn't a gap year opportunity. I just decided that was for me, so I just didn't go. And my parents, they cared a lot about me, but they also know me as a human, and they were kind of like, well, he's going to do what he's going to do. So I don't know what that was like for them. Now that I have kids, I wonder. But anyway.
It'd be an interesting, if your kids, whenever they get to that age and they said, hey, Dad.
Oh, no. Yeah. Get back to school.
Yeah. So they just trusted you? And was it just, you just wanted something? Like you wanted a car? Or you just wanted to like...
I just wanted to work full time and earn money, and I felt like I was, I'm not sure that at that time I even wanted to go back to high school. I thought I'd just earn some money, get a job. I could always start a business or something. I think it was my thinking. It was a long time ago, but that was kind of what I was thinking. And then I took a year off, and hard labor kind of makes you go, well, maybe I will go back to school.
Did you? Speaking of hard labor, did you work on your dad's job sites?
Growing up, I did. Yeah, he had me running around like lifting moving lumber, and all this. Hey, there's a little small hole that and nobody else will fit in. Can you go stuff insulation in there, kind of thing?
And the reason I asked you, my dad built houses for 35 years.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So I was same thing. So just early on job sites, moving lumber.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Totally.
Digging out basements with like 5-gallon buckets.
Yeah.
Like
cleaning up. Yeah. Shingles up on roofs. All that stuff. Right.
So, but the hay bales was a different level of manual labor.
Yeah. It was dusty. You'd have to wear a dust mask, and you'd go home and just be like, you're covered in dust. It probably wasn't as healthy. Where the conveyor belt converged into to go up. There was a room, they called it the mouse room or something, but it's where like mice and stuff would fall, and I had to go clean that out, and like it was rough. So I was like, okay, school's not so bad. I went back, and then my principal at the time said, okay, we're going to let you come back. I didn't realize it was going to be this thing, but it was a bit of a thing because that's not an option just to leave.
Yep.
So they said, you can come back, but you're a bit of a class clown. So 0 tolerance policy here on out, and then you can come back. And I was like, okay, cool. So I did that, and then that didn't work out. There's a couple things that happened. It was just goofing around, but then I ended up getting kicked out, I think, within 2 or 3 months of that. So I went back to work.
And that was it.
Yeah, I actually moved back into the city. My oldest sister was in the city, so I moved in with her, and she got me a job working at SMED International, which was Mogan SMED, who has Falkbuilt now.
Yep.
He had a company called SMED International, and it was office furniture
Yeah,
and assembly and stuff.
50 seconds?
Yeah. So
no
I
way.
worked there a long time ago when they were kind of...
Well, so you get booted out of high school?
Yeah.
So it didn't finish.
No.
And did that occupy any brain power back then? Were you concerned about your future at all, or you just knew you could work and you'd figure it out?
I just thought I would start a business at some point. My dad always had a business. I didn't think I could, nothing I couldn't figure out, but I was really naive, right? Because it's not as easy as that. But you could always go back is kind of my thinking. And then also like when I started getting into jobs and stuff, because I did manual labor jobs, I did all kinds of them. And then I started to think, well, do they actually check like if I put my stuff on here? So I just started putting stuff on there, and I started getting jobs, and eventually you get certain jobs that open up other doors, and they stop. I mean, I'm not trying to be a doctor or an engineer or something, right? Like there's lots of different ways you can go, and they're not going to check. So I didn't think it was a big deal.
Your folks, did they like?
No, I don't know why. I should ask them.
It's interesting though, right? Like
Yeah.
again, your kids.
Yeah.
If that scenario played out, I'm
Yeah.
sure you'd have a couple things on your mind.
Yeah, like I don't think my mom finished high school.
Yeah.
She had what's that learning thing where you saying backwards as forward? What's it called?
Dyslexia.
Yeah, she was very dyslexic. So and back then there was no support for that kind of thing. So and then my dad had high school, but he didn't go on to post-secondary. It's very small, rural Ontario, and so maybe their thinking was that he'll get a job just like everybody else.
Yep.
Or maybe they thought I was a genius. I don't know. Who knows?
Either or.
I'll take the latter.
So your sister was living in Calgary?
Yeah.
And then you just looked at, an opportunity. Bigger city, more options.
Totally. Just come live. I think I was staying on the couch or something until I could get my own place. And, that's kind of it. Then I was in Calgary, and I was working jobs, and I moved all over the place. I don't know, had a job it was north, I can't remember where it was in Calgary, but I had a job in an office, and then I ended up moving out to Edmonton and having a job there. And then I left Edmonton to go to Australia, and then I lived in Australia for a year and a half.
Just hanging out? Like, was there a reason you went there?
Well, I bought it like I think it was 2007, 2008 when the housing prices were going crazy. I'd sold my my stake in a house that I had with a buddy in Calgary, and I bought a pre-build condo in Edmonton, and I bought it, and then the next day it was like selling for $10,000 more, and then selling for $20,000. It was like crazy, right? Like no haggling. They just came in and bought the thing, and I made some money. Yep. So I was like, well, what am I going to do with that? So I moved to Australia. How
old were you?
I was like 17 when I moved. No, sorry, 20. I was 27 when I moved to Australia.
Okay.
It's the first time I was on an airplane.
No way.
Yeah.
So and when you're bouncing around with all these jobs before you get to that point, are you just like taking anything? Is there a reason you're taking jobs? Is it like more money? Is it interest? Is it connections? Or like, what's the drive to like pull you all over?
I was taking pretty much whatever I felt like was a step up, whether it was not or wasn't. I'm not sure, but money mostly. And then I was moonlighting as a stand-up comedian for a long time. So
no way.
I did that for 5 or 6 years.
Early, like you were.
Yeah, like I remember being 21 or 20 or something, and I invited everybody from my hometown to come check out one of my open mic nights at
Where
Yuck
was
Yucks.
it? Oh, Yuck Yucks.
Yeah, Blackfoot.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Blackfoot.
Which I'm glad you got there. So being an extrovert,
yeah,
it just fits. But how does it even enter into your head that like, I think stand-up might be an interesting thing? Like what What's the build up to that moment?
Well, I'd always been, people always responded to me like, people thought I was a funny person. So there was a natural kind of fit there. And I think I saw my first stand-up routine when I was like 20, which is crazy. But I was like, what is this? Like, people do this for a living? This is their life? So, naively, I was like, okay, well, I can go up and be funny. But that's where I was wrong, because it actually involves a lot of writing. You have to go up, you do a 5-minute set, you get a couple jokes that are funny. That's successful. Then you take those two and you add on to them. So you see a set that somebody's, Robin Williams was like off the cuff and hilarious. He'd been doing it for 10, 15 years. Like those, he had everything figured out by then, right? And so you have like an hour-long, really funny set. That's years and years of trial and error to build up those jokes. Yeah. So it is a very painful process, which I kind of liked. I liked the science behind it. I loved the writing, trying to figure out the science of a joke. And I think what happens is you're either not super funny in real life, but you stick to that process and you become funny through doing the processes of stand-up, or you're very funny and, it takes you an immense amount of time to actually find your voice or the reason why you're funny. Because it's hard.
That why you're funny. Yeah. I'm sure you can chase that for a long time.
Yeah, you can chase it forever. And you're out and you have your third eye open the whole time. And you're like, okay, well, I just said something really funny. And why was that funny? Like, or why did that joke get the laugh one night and dead silence the next night, right? Like, what was it about it? Was it timing? Was it the word the? Like, what was it?
And those thoughts, like that can, it is a science, right?
Yeah.
To like have an experience, to go through it, have all these lessons, like live lessons, and then take it away and then recraft it for the next time. Like,
yeah, totally. And I think like I can write okay now. And I think a lot of it has to do with the sheer amount of things I wrote during that time, like notebooks full of just stuff I thought was hilarious. But,
so what did that look like? Like that we did stand up for 5-6 years?
Yeah, 5, 6. In fact, I did up until 27, so 7 years. And then I did the Melbourne Comedy Festival. And ironically enough, I did the Melbourne Comedy Festival and I did my show and I was entered into it. And then I didn't get through. And so I called back to find out, because I wanted to improve. I was like, okay, well, I don't want to just find out that I failed. I want to find out why. Yep. What can I improve upon? So I called them and they said that my set seemed too polished. And that's why they thought that maybe I was doing it somewhere else and, whatever. But it was the first time I had done that set. It's just I got really good at writing and trying new stuff that it worked really well. And I thought I was in, but no, they didn't let me go.
So that was going to be, so you bounced around Calgary for like open comedy. Like what does the scene actually look like? Is it invite only? Do you have to sign up for nights, or how does it actually work?
So back then, I don't know if you remember, I think it was called Sal's. It was on 17th here.
House.
Yeah. They had an open mic night there, and you get involved in the community. So there's just the stuff that pops up, and you just go and you show up, and in places like that, people are playing pool and talking, and you're just doing your set to nobody really, or your friends who came with you who are also comedians. It's a very lonely life. And
I was just going to ask you about that, because when you are, you're putting your heart and soul into something.
Yeah.
You have the courage to actually go and do it live, and you are just like background noise.
Your background noise.
And it hurt. And the reason I feel that is because when I was DJing, you'd have nights that were just electric, right? And you're just like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. And the nights where you were just like background music and nobody even knew what was happening, or there was actually a live person playing, like that, it really eats your soul.
Yeah. And you're walking to the parking lot and it's like starts raining and,
it's every
car doesn't start and like it's a horrible life.
Yeah, totally.
And so the one time I told all my friends, because I had a really particularly good set the Tuesday before, or whatever day it was. And I said to all these people from my town, come, like, check out my set. And I was early in my journey in stand-up, so I wrote a whole new 5 minutes. I was like, I'm going to write I didn't know that was a terrible idea. So all these people came, and it was the worst. Not a single laugh. I completely bombed for the whole 5 minutes. And then beyond that, every time I'm back in my hometown, people are like, oh, Adam, I always remember like that set you did. That was really funny. And you know that it wasn't funny. And it just lives on.
Yeah, it just and the it, like all these lessons you learn along the way, right? Like stick to I'm sure it's like stick to what you're good at, or stick to don't flip the whole thing, just like make small changes along the way.
Small changes, iterate. And then, you have a good opening, use your opening, right? Don't don't try to recreate anyone. But
So when you go to Australia,
yeah,
you have like you have this, like you've been doing stand up in Calgary for a while.
yeah,
You got some money in your pocket.
yeah.
You want to go get on a plane for the first time.
Yeah, and I ended up at a hostel in Melbourne, and I got a job as a junior credit analyst, and just because of my resume.
So what was on your resume?
Just that I went to school, but I had some previous experience in the general area, and then so I had that. So I was living. I was what was it? Fitzroy or something is where I was working. But then I'd be going to the kind of the open mic nights and stuff in Melbourne.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knew who I was or whatever, but it was still kind of fun. And I did that, and then at the end of that trip, I decided to leave Australia, and I met a girl who's now my wife, and we
In Australia.
yeah, at the very end. I went to New Zealand after that for a while, and then I moved. I came back home, and then I moved to England for a year because that's where she's from.
Yeah.
And I lived there for a year, and then
Working? Just like,
working. I was a currency broker in London,
so how do you?
just off Bank Street.
Okay, hold on. So you go from like bunch of manual jobs,
Yeah,
manual labor,
yeah.
no high school,
No,
no post-secondary.
no.
And somewhere along the way, you've got some experiences that can actually like,
Yeah.
and so what is it? Like what actually got you are you making things up for your resume, or you actually got some things behind you?
So it's kind of like at the beginning, it was credit counseling type work. And then that let me understand credit bureaus well. And then when you're a junior credit analyst at it was an insurance premium funding company, then you can read bureaus really well and you can understand risk a little bit. So you're just basically doing the first part of the rest of the process.
Gotcha.
And then and then you have that, so you're kind of in the world of finance a little bit. And then the currency broker thing was more it is a little bit financial, but it's mostly sales, right? So
Gotcha.
And I just had an ability to talk, and
Yep.
so I got that job, and that was fine for the year that I was there. And then I came back, and I think I moved to Vancouver.
Man, you were like,
Yeah. Well, my wife was an actor. She was going to university for acting, so
Okay.
I figured I'd move to Vancouver, where if she did come back to Canada, there'd be best chance for it.
Yep.
So I'm in Vancouver, and I got a job working for. I was a headhunter for finance and accounting, so recruitment for finance and accounting. Did that, and I ended up getting moved to Calgary because I was going to leave, and they said, "Well, don't leave. We'll move you to Calgary and give you a job in our suburban office."
Yep.
So then I moved to Calgary on the back of that, and then had that job. I was downtown for a while, and
Did your wife?
she went to Vancouver, but she was a stage actor, and all the Vancouver stuff was like film and television,
Right.
so it didn't work anyway. But she got lots of stuff in Calgary.
Yep.
And then she started a greeting card stationery company at the same kind of thing that I was thinking about, Friday Socks. And
Cool.
she ended up quitting her admin job and doing that, and she does that full time
Still.
now. Yeah.
So when you're bouncing around, Australia, New Zealand, England, Vancouver, then finally get back to Calgary, so for me, I hate it. That idea just like makes my,
We have no friends anymore.
Yeah.
They're all gone.
yeah.
So that sucks. But at the same time, I don't know. I kind of like the journey of that too. Like being, I don't mind a crowded elevator, where you go in and you're kind of like, it's awkward for everyone else. I don't mind it, right?
You thrive there.
I thrive. That's right. That's where I'm at my best. But it's the same kind. It's a lonely journey, but at the same time, it's kind of fun too.
Yep.
For me, anyway.
Yeah, you have the personality just to like when you get somewhere, you could either figure out what's going on, and
Yeah.
you have the personality to actually talk to people and
Figure it out.
figure it out.
In Australia, I always remember I got so lonely. I just asked this lady for directions. I knew the way, but I was like, "Hey, could you tell
Just
me?"
talk to somebody.
Yeah, just to talk to somebody. But eventually, I got friends there too, right? But
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's that's an uncomfortable spot
yeah,
to feel like that. Like that's probably why I don't travel, or I don't like
Yeah.
I stick to Calgary, and that's what I love. But that feeling, you just trust it. You just trust you're on the right path. You're going to work through it, and it's like I know this is short-term pain.
yeah. I mean, it can't be like that forever. And and it wasn't like things happen. I got a geek. I was out of the hostel and I was in this place, and this place, it was a shared accommodations with 8 other people. So next thing you know, you're going out for drinks with your best friends, and I still know a couple of them to this day, right?
No way.
Yeah. A couple of Italians taught me how to like make the best carbonara ever. I still make it. It's awesome.
No way.
Yeah. You never know.
Well, you never know. And is it like, is part of your process just like put yourself in situations and just see what happens? Or is it like,
Yeah, I really like that.
like that's actually,
I'll say yes
decision?
before I think about something. It's like, hey, do you want to do, there's a guest speaking thing coming up. There's a few things I've done where it's like, hey, do you want to do something? Yeah, sure. And then 2 weeks before it happens, I'm like, okay, what am I doing here? But it's too late.
Yeah. Do you ever, when you say yes to anything, is there any expectations behind it? Or you just like, are you there for the experience?
I just think I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm just like, and the experience, just the experience of life, right? Like I wonder, good or bad, kind of doesn't matter. Like obviously good would be better, but if it doesn't go as well as I hope or whatever, then there's going to be a real something there that can be learned.
Yeah.
So I think if nothing else, you'll learn and you'll pick up something for next time for sure.
Yeah. And I think I was recently in a spot where I was speaking at this on this panel, and I went in with an idea of what I was going to get out of it. And the minute I sat down, I was like, okay, that idea is not going to play out.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden this other opportunity shows up and I was like, oh, that's why I'm here.
Ah, yeah.
But part of it is just like showing up to actually be in those experiences.
Totally. And not being, I find, too planned, because I've done ones where I've kind of written out a script and tried to memorize it. That reminds me of comedy, and that's not always such a good thing. Like, I think if I could go back to my younger self who was a fledgling comedian, I would say just do bullet points, like, and just riff.
Right.
And the thing about now is when I get asked to do any kind of speaking or panels or anything like that, I just talk about what happened.
Yeah.
So it's not, I don't have to memorize anything because I'm just talking about what actually happened and what my actual viewpoint is. So it's not hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to get up in front of people still. It always will be, but it's hard to put yourself out there. But I think the rest of it comes.
Yeah. Do you find that, if you get asked to speak somewhere and they ask you to put slides up or something behind you or whatever, like something half planned?
I'm not so good at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because what is it though? Because I feel the same way.
It's too contrived, I think. And for me to be that organized is a tough ask. Like my brain doesn't work that way. I'm not the person. I mean, I've got I don't even think I have all of my grade 10, right? Like I'm just not an organized person. I have attention deficit out the wazoo, and I just got to be me, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's why this scenario is interesting, right? No script, no nothing, like really no idea where this is going to go, but it's more of that's why the show is just it's a little bit different, right? So it's just a conversation, and who knows where it's going to end up. But
it's like a stream. There's sort of heavy rainfall on dry ground, and every little pathway kind of winds its way, but there could be a number of pathways, right?
Totally.
Like you just go where it kind of takes you.
Yeah.
Which when I was watching the podcast, I was like, these are awesome.
Yeah, it's so random.
Yeah.
That's the fun
It's
part.
perfect.
Too. Yeah. So back to random. So you're back to Calgary. Your wife's here now. You're doing the recruiting thing.
Yeah.
And then then what's going on?
Yeah, and I was good at it. I was earning good money. But I was thinking about starting a side hustle.
Okay, sorry. Before you go there, you said it earlier about just like, I thought I would do my own thing. I thought I had my own business. Was that a continuing thought for
totally.
Like at every turn you're just like,
notebooks full of ideas.
Yeah, okay.
Like always, I'll do this now. It's probably like, in fact, when I started Friday, I think I drove my my now wife crazy because she was just like, okay, can you just like do something and keep talking about all these things that you could do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and socks was just another idea. I was wearing fun socks at the time, and I was like, hey, I'd love to find a pair that like mismatched to really kind of up my sock game, right? Mm-hmm. And then I couldn't find any in the marketplace, and I was like, okay, well, there's an idea.
That was going to be your side hustle idea?
Side hustle.
Okay.
And I remember walking down 17th thinking, in one of my kind of things, I was like, okay, if I can get Friday, it wasn't Friday at the time, but if I can get a sock company going and I can get this amount of money, and then I can start this thing and I can get this amount of money, and then this, I think I could do this with like 6 or 7 micro companies. I think I could actually, that would be my full-time job instead of working,
Yep.
So.
Did you have the 6 ideas?
Yeah, I had 20, right?
No way.
So I was like,
so where do these ideas come from? Just
mostly when I'm eating cereal.
That's your brilliance.
They come when you drive or when you're quiet your brain for a while.
But you just
pops out.
Yeah, and it happens differently for everybody. But
Yeah.
for you were actually like there was a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ideas rolling through your head for a lot of years.
And still now I get 10 a day, and maybe one of them is good and maybe none of them are, but
Okay.
I just always have ideas for stuff.
So you want to have potential 6 micro businesses that let you quit the full-time gig.
Yeah.
And then you can do your thing.
Live off the proceeds of my imagination is how I put it, right? And then so I started Friday, and I started going to the markets, Market Collective, and all the ones locally that I could go to.
But how does this go back one step?
Oh yeah.
How does this even before you get to the markets?
By sheer stupidity.
Because I don't understand the retail game. I don't understand sourcing products and design.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you have the idea, and for whatever this one has a little, you're just willing to go down the path a little bit further than regular.
Yeah, there is a logical reason for it, because I was like, if I've always loved design, so this gives me a way to do design. I love the relationship of things, and how things interconnect. So I was like, okay, I could really push that with this as well. And then I was like, my opening order was, I think, $5,000 worth.
Okay. And you just do the Google, find somewhere that makes socks.
I found a place in China that did it.
Would take your vector files and
not even vector. I did scribbles with pencil crayons.
No way.
They were doing it there. In the beginning, I had a friend, a friend of my wife, who did, I think, 1 or 2 designs to try to help me in the beginning.
Yeah.
But I would scribble down concepts, and then they would send me back two or three times, and I didn't understand how the knitting files or anything worked. But eventually, they'd send me the product, and I had 6 designs to begin with.
Okay, so 5,000.
Yeah, $5,000, 6
Oh,
designs. It was, I'd say, I can't remember, 2,000 pairs or something like that.
Okay,
But here's where I was. If I start this thing, I have 2,000 pairs of socks. What is the lifetime supply of socks? If it fails, I have covered off socks for my entire life. So that's fine.
So you're good.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's an expiry date on socks at this point.
What year was this, by the way?
2014 is when I first started to kind of jot down ideas and stuff. And then I launched in January of 2015.
Okay, that's when the order you place the order shows up.
Everything came in December of 2014 or something.
Okay, cool.
Like that. Yeah.
So you got 2,000 socks.
Yeah.
And then what are you thinking?
Not much. I'm like, let's get a website up. Let's shout this out to my friends. But coming from kind of a sales background, I was always like, let's get into some stores if I can. But 6 pairs of socks and trying to get into stores is pretty much impossible. So I got a couple, and then mostly it was markets in the beginning to get the cash flow going.
Yep. So that grind of doing the market
every weekend,
pop-up events whenever
whenever I could, it was nonstop. And then when I started to get some orders and our first few stores and stuff, I'd be up at night. I'd come home from work and then I'd be up at night and, taping boxes or packaging stuff, depending on the time of year, until 1 a.m. or 2 a.m.
Glamorous, right?
Oh, it's up.
Starting your business.
When it started to become a little tiny business, I had 4 storage lockers downstairs, right, in our condo unit. I had a storage unit in Inglewood that I'd furiously try to drive to before they closed. I think it was at 11, and bring it all back in. And we're up a bunch of stairs. I have pictures of our whole condo full of boxes. It was horrible.
So the first, did you build your first website?
Yeah, just used Weebly or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were you doing e-com on there? Were you actually selling on there? Yeah.
Okay, a little bit here and there. Yeah.
But mostly markets.
Mostly markets. And
so how long does it take to get through the first 2,000?
I think I got through them by the fall.
Okay.
I kind of remember, I have a foggy memory of in the fall having the next 12 designs I think I did.
Yep.
And then at that point, we had so many problems with the first manufacturer, we had to switch, and I found a new manufacturer. That went terrible.
Second one was horrible.
Second one was horrible. I had a third manufacturer.
But these guys are the first one sends you 2,000 pairs.
Yeah.
Second one sends you a bunch too, I'm guessing.
Yeah, 5,000, let's call it. Yeah.
And then the third one?
And the third one probably at 8,000 by then.
And so this is over kind of a 3-4 year period.
No, year and a half.
Okay.
I think June 2016 is when I incorporated and when it started to actually become a business. Started doing some custom socks for customers.
Yep.
We made our first made in Italy collection at that point.
Okay.
I was having so many problems with the manufacturer I had.
Yep.
3 times. So I decided to try made in Italy collection. So that went well and people responded to the higher price,
Yep.
better quality.
Still in markets, still online.
Still markets every weekend, every chance I get, all online, making some custom socks. And
Is it still that ugly, like storage lockers, boxes everywhere, living room a mess? Like it's still this like picture of
pretty much. And then like I think the end of 2016, we moved into a house. We had to leave our condo, so we rented it out to somebody. And then we rented a house in Northwest Calgary, and we made the basement our HQ. And we left all the rooms empty, and we kind of had our storage down there then at that point.
Yep.
And we had our first part-time employee, I think, early 2017.
No way. Doing what?
Just packaging.
Just packaging.
3 times.
Just coming to the house and packaging.
Yeah, customer service and packaging. Moved to a little tiny warehouse, and I think it was 1,500 square feet after that. Had a couple employees.
And what was that jump?
Yeah.
So going from, home operation to then, okay, now I need space. What is actually happening in your head right in that moment? Are you like, I need this? Like, can I afford to do this? Am I stressed about the payments? Like, what's happening?
All those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, just sleepless nights. Like, I have to do it because we're running out of space and we don't have the ability to continue to put stock in our house.
Yeah.
It was hard. It was hard because I'll say this. So you're at a certain stage of your business early days. You make X amount of money, like profit. You're at 3 years later, you still make X amount of profit, but now you have 10 employees, like it's kind of one of those things. That's not the story for everybody, but, and our situation has improved after that. But there's this period of time in between where you're like, why am I even doing this? Right. So it was prior to that, but it was knowing that I was going to have to now spend X amount on rent, and I'm going to have to deal with people issues that I never had to deal with, and hiring people to do stuff that, they don't know how to do.
Yeah. Just to scale it.
Yeah, just to keep going.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if there was any grandiose like things in my head really, but we were okay. We were doing well. We were starting to pay myself. I think in year 3.
And full time. So this is year 3 was like full. You took it on full time, or what year did you actually like quit the full time gig and then?
Yeah, no, I quit I got fired in June.
No way.
Yeah.
Just because your attention was somewhere else.
Yeah, I was working
half-assing it?
I was half-assing it, but I did a really good job for them for the years previous, so I wasn't feeling that guilty about it. But when it came down the pipeline, I was like a little bit like annoyed, but also because I was going to quit myself in 6 months. I wasn't quite ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I was like, yeah, I get it though. And I'll remember this. I always remember this. I was talking to my wife about, I'll do early mornings at UPS and I'll start working there, or maybe I'll start driving Uber to like make ends meet and then I was at a storage locker doing stuff, and I got a call from WestJet, from somebody at WestJet, and they're like, okay, we're going to go ahead with that custom order we were talking about. And that bought me like 3 more months. And when I say paying myself, I paid myself enough to survive. It was very, very little. We were living on rice, and it wasn't great. My wife still had money coming in, so there was that too. But then, so that bought me 3 more months. And during that 3 months, something else happened. I can't remember that. Bought another 3 months. It's kind of how it started.
But you can't plan for those things.
No.
So you're literally just like having these 3 months of, life's not awesome. It's good because you're doing your own thing. Yeah. Goods and bad.
Yeah.
This bunch of stress behind it, finances and all the rest of it. But that energy, you just accept it? Like it's what you signed up for? And
yeah, I think there's no other option, right? You're already in it. It's like jumping into cold water and not dipping your toe in first. You just jump in and now you're in cold water, and you have to swim back to shore or try to tread water as long as you can, right? So I guess I always felt like at that point, it's hard to remember, but I remember thinking, okay, we are making ends meet barely. We have an old van that we drive around, and that's fine. And we had a baby during that time, our first kid, and
just in the middle of all of this.
Yeah. And then we were surviving, and I was like, okay, well, every year is a little bit better than last year, so we'll just keep doing this. Yeah. And then suddenly you're fast forward 7 years or going into 7 years, and we have a good team now, and bigger place. And
Yep.
yeah.
Is it when things are when your memory's a little foggy about like 7 years ago? Isn't it interesting though? Because when you're in that moment, it's all consuming, stressful. It's all these things, and now fast forward. It's like it was just a moment in time.
Yeah, and it's like I always go back on Instagram's a useful tool for that. I just go back. It's almost like a diary, right? Like I was doing that then. Okay, I remember that. I remember that moment, right?
Do you think it's because there's so many things going on?
Yeah.
That you're just like these are just little moments in time that you're just like, that's I got 10,000 ahead of me, so
yeah, and you get to a certain point, and it's the same. It's the same is true for any type of job where you get really good at a job, or you're in a job and you kind of know all the little details, but you forget those details, and you're just there. Like that's just now it's your reality. And then a new person starts and you're training them and you realize, wow, I do know a lot now. Yeah. And it's kind of the same thing where you get a certain stage with your small business where you're like, okay, I was just complaining about something, but actually we're doing great. Like if I go back and I even think about 4 years ago, we're in a much better place now. So it's just hard to remind yourself, it's how things have gone.
Yeah.
And compared to what reality is at this moment in time.
Totally. So that 1,500 square foot warehouse space.
Yeah.
You're free there you just needed more space. You had to hire people to do more things. So you needed a space.
Yeah.
Take the overhead and you're like, I got to do this.
Totally. And I'm like, I'll be here for so long. This is awesome. And then 2 years later, we outgrew and we had to get, we have 7,000 square feet now. And and then that one was a very sleepless week probably of taking on the new 7,000. Yeah,
that's massive.
It's for me, but even now,
for a lot of people,
right?
It's massive.
So we're putting in inventory there, but it's already getting full. 2.5 years in, so we have a 5-month lease on that, and we'll see how that goes. But it's possible that I'll have to sublet it and find a new place.
Yep,
we'll see how it goes. I don't
know. So where's this growth coming from? And so 2018. So I got 2 questions. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm all over. Where's all the growth coming from first? Is it all like word of mouth, all these markets? Is there anything is there anything that caught fire that was my moment?
No idea. No, I don't know. I think it was word of mouth mostly. We've never done much for like ads, which mystifies people. I think my focus has always been on the product, making a good product that we have a really high return rate of customers.
Yep.
So making a good product, I think the design focused approach has been really good for us.
Is it still you
doing the design?
Yeah, leading it, come up with the concepts, or
not anymore. Tamara's our senior designer now, and she comes up with a lot of this stuff, or we'll come up with concepts together and she'll run with it, and I'll be pleasantly surprised with what she comes up with. And a lot of times it's better than what is in my brain. So I'm very fortunate there. But back then when I was teaching myself how to design and drawing on an iPad and stuff, it's not as good as it is now. But trying to push the boundaries, and now we're at a stage where we've kind of done all the obvious stuff. So now I love it because now we're doing like a cat on one and a cat knocking off a plant on, like a cat sitting beside a plant, and on the other sock it's a cat that's knocked that plant off.
Cool.
Like just subtle humor, funny things.
Yep.
Instead of being like bacon and eggs.
Yep.
Which is fun too. But
so I want to get into 2018.
Yeah.
Specifically Avenue, and I think it's just the perfect conversation what we were talking about earlier. Just these moments in time, and just like what was going through your head. Explain what happened. What was going through your head, and from the outside, I have this. I'm really curious. Do people think that when they get that kind of accolade, have they made it? Is it all? Is this golden halo around me, and I've reached where I need to be?
I don't know. I think.
So explain what actually happened in 2018. So
okay, yeah. So what happens? You get nominated by somebody. I got nominated by a few people. You don't know who they are unless they tell you later on.
Yep.
And then you have to write out kind of it's kind of like an application. It's like, you're nominated, now tell us why you deserve to get this. So I wrote my thing and I sent it in, and it was kind of just like, I don't think that I have a real good shot at this, but whatever. We've given a little bit of back to the community. We've done good things and we're trying. And then, then there's like a time when you'll be notified by, and then, I got a call, and I was at the Stampede grounds during Stampede. I had a couple of beers in me at the time, but got a call and it was, hey, you've been selected to be, top 40 under 40 for the 2018 class. And I was just like amazed. Like, it's crazy. Awesome. I remember going like to the doctor's office and having Avenue magazine, like when I was younger, and like flipping through them, like, these are top 40. Who are these people? Right. Change makers. Right. I want to be one of those. I got it. And then we did, I was pretty excited about it.
Like it's a big thing.
It seems like it's a cool thing. Right. Yeah. So then, they did the photo shoot, which was pretty cool. And then, we had the event and you're in amongst Calgary's movers and shakers. You're in amongst people that have done a lot of really cool things, and you just kind of find yourself a little bit of imposter syndrome, and especially when it's a mismatched sock company. But anyway, it was awesome, and I had a friend from my old high school that I got booted out of who was there, and was like, "Oh man, I haven't seen you in years. I didn't know you were going to be here," and I was one of the top 40. So it's kind of cool. Yeah, you get on a magazine, and then you get. I got some things from it, like some guest speaking, but I don't know. It goes away. Yeah, pretty much right away.
So then what happens? Like that's 2018. Here we are in 2023.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear, what actually happens after that. Where you're thinking, where the business actually goes, and what's actually happening now. Because it just, again, from the outside, people look at someone that would win an award, be like, oh fuck, yeah, they're here. They're like,
I felt like that, a little bit, like I made it a little bit, but not in a way that's like, oh, I made it. It's like,
you're not going to put everything on pause.
No. It's just like more of like, I felt like I had done something good. So, right. Yep. Validation is really right. So I felt a bit validated. I don't know, like, other than that, I was always focused on stores. So when our business is very much a wholesale distribution business. So I've always been, I remember I have an old photo of me taping boxes in our condo, and I have a thermometer on the wall with like how many stores we can get in. Cool. And so that's always been my biggest focus. Yep. And so we've grown that way mostly. Right. So getting into stores.
Building relationships with local vendors across the country.
Yeah, across Canada. Yep. Yeah, and into the US. Yep. We're in a whole bunch of stores now, and it comes from, a process where you reach out to them and you build a relationship and you're there, and, you send incentives, and you have a good product, and you want to show them it.
It's a long process.
It's a long process. Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight. Yeah. But as far as getting top 40, I don't know. I think it was there. It's cool. It was on my thing. I was very happy. A debt of gratitude to Avenue for thinking of me for it. It was awesome. But after that was over, it was kind of just on to the next thing. And the pandemic was a big thing for us. That was the biggest thing that happened that pushed the business.
What actually happened? And it's really, for me, it's like, I forget. Yeah. You forget about it. And you also forget, like, how it really affected businesses, positive and negative.
Both, so yes.
This will be...
Yeah. For us, thankfully, the world moved online, and I was pretty scared. Like, I thought we were in trouble. We had just gotten our new warehouse space. Yep. We weren't even a month in. We hadn't even got it outfitted. Like, and part of the process for that was to have a store inside that would help us pay for rent. And so that went away. There's nobody coming to a small store inside of in a warehouse. So I was really scared, but I started thinking about who else is going to be impacted by this. And I thought, okay, well, if I'm in this situation and I'm already pretty worried, what about people that are already homeless? Like, what is their situation going to be like? So I thought of a design to do, and we did a mock-up pretty much the next day, which had hand sanitizer on one and toilet paper on the other, just because there was craziness over toilet paper and all this. I just thought it was funny, making light of a terrible situation. Yep. And I was like, okay, well, let's put these out and let's pre-sell them and let's raise money for the food bank and give 100% of the profits, right? I needed the money, but I was like, if we can sell a whole bunch of these socks and raise money for the food bank, it might have a knock-on effect where people also will support us. Yep. And it did. Like, it was I was on the radio, CBC radio, I was on CTV News. It did a real good thing for us. Yep. Because every few people that were supporting the food bank also bought socks. Yep. So it got us through that. Yep. One day we ended up raising about $50,000 for it. No way. Yeah. So it was great.
That's a big
check. Yeah. It was hard to write it, but it was also easy to write it because then I was at work and I was trying to think of, okay, that's going on. What else can we do? So I was like, okay, let's I had an idea of buying an RC car and combining it with something. And I found like one of those blue shopping baskets, and I kind of put the two things together. So it's a basket that you drive around because people couldn't come and shop. So I was thinking if I drive this thing out to them, then they can pick up their goods. So we called it Kirby the Curbside Wonder. And people were showing up. There was families, and the van side door would open, and the kids would jump out and like wait for Kirby, and I'd jump Kirby over the speed bumps in the parking lot and drive it around and do circles, and they'd laugh, and then eventually they'd get their package.
No way.
So that worked really well too, because a lot of people were starting to come for that.
Very creative.
Yeah.
When you get put in that scenario, I guess there's a couple options, right? You can roll over,
Yeah.
or come up with very creative ideas and
Yeah.
keep this thing moving forward.
Yeah. I think of it too, like when you proactively take money off the table when you're thinking about a creative solution or a problem or something you want to do, but you take money out of the equation.
Yep.
You allow yourself to come up with something creative. And it's kind of like the pandemic for us caused us where we had to think of something, and we did, right? So it's just it's an interesting thing how that went down, because came up with two or three other things that worked really well too. And now I can't come up with a single idea. So,
So coming out of that,
yeah. It boosted our sales like dramatically.
just what do you think it was? Like people, the brand was, you come up with creative ideas, so that people are looking at the brand in a different way, or like, oh, this is a thoughtful, creative, funny brand, and they're just getting behind it. Like there's obviously you built a deeper connection within the brand, and now people are continue to, and new supporters.
Yeah, and I think it was as simple as it's a good gift at a certain price point, and we would send it to people and brighten their day in a world of murkiness at the time.
Yeah.
We had people buying socks for their elderly parents and grandparents, and so that they would have something fun to wear in the hospital as well, and all these things. But then we had we just had a lot of, I think, people wanting to do something nice for one another because the situation wasn't great. And everybody had moved online. So the amount of people who would never order online, they were calling and saying, walk me, I'm on my iPad. Walk me through how to do this.
Which is like, you take for granted, right?
Yeah.
And just kind of assume that everyone understands these things.
Yeah. So, I mean, pandemic was horrible, but, and I was by myself for the whole time, basically. We started to get staffed near the end of the 2020. But again, because it just kind of emptied out for us. But it was a very busy time, and I honestly didn't, other than going to the grocery store and having to wear a mask, I don't really know that there was, I mean, I know there was a pandemic and it was horrible, but I was busy working, and I kind of wasn't paying attention because I was keeping my business going.
Yeah. Do you look back very often? Are you reflective to look back, and think about, you're selling socks.
Yeah.
Which is,
stupid.
It's it's an idea, right?
Yeah.
And you've been doing it for a lot of years now. Went through a pandemic, staff, warehouse, and could you have seen all this playing out?
No, not a chance. And I just got through an exercise where I'm planning out my next 5 and 10 years. Right, your BHAG.
Is that new?
Yeah.
Is this a new thing for you?
Yeah.
To plan something like.
Yeah, I got into a few months where I'm kind of lost sight with, because I've achieved what I envisioned.
Which was
just to be able to have my own place, freedom, staff that I can, get on board and build a culture and all that stuff. I'm here now kind of doing what I set out to do.
Yep.
Remember, my whole thing back then was to get out of a corporate job and just to be free with my own thing. And so I got there, and we've done better than I thought we would. And now I'm kind of okay, well, what's next? And it's hard for me to think of big things so far out. So what I did is I did 5 years, and then I said, okay, 5 years, now I can do 10 years. So I worked from that aspect instead of going way out and coming back.
Yeah.
So
seems like since you've started going through this process, feels like a good idea. You feel like there's going to be some direction for you out of this.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So my whole thing now is we have a company called Very Serious Company. It's not, but the name is a very serious company.
The comedy, hey,
Yeah,
like it just like it's just thread
zingers.
But does everyone know that?
Yeah, I think so. And they don't like me sometimes because they don't know I'm joking, but I'm always joking, like 99% of the time. That's how I deal with life. But I have the very serious company, and we have a candle company. We have socks now. We have 2 greeting card companies, stationery companies. We have we bought a matchstick company in the fall, so matchsticks and apothecary jars, fancy matches.
Cool.
And like we're rolling out new things to chase the original idea, which is to get into independent retailers across Canada and the US. Yeah. Give them lots of new interesting products with a story. And
so you kind of so instead of coming to this retailer with like, selling socks, now you come with these like 6, 7, 8 offerings that kind of fit into the same kind of eclectic.
Yeah. It's like a mini distribution hub. And if we, from a sales standpoint, if we go to a store and we're like, this store would carry our candles, then we'll probably start there. Right. And then kind of mention we also have other things, come to our website, and they go. It makes the order experience really easy. Yeah. And one shipment, sometimes it's 2, but it's one place it's shipping from. Yeah. And then the relationship and incentives. So we're working on now incentivizing. If you pick up more than 2 brands over this period of time or 3, then you can get a discount. Which
kind of plays into your idea of having like 5, 6 micro businesses.
Exactly. It's full circle.
And
it's crazy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's more.
Did you, that idea of like, as soon as you said like, 5 or 6 micro things, and now you're explaining that there actually is.
Yeah.
With like intention, like were you intentional with this, or just, it just like you needed something newish to do? And
yeah, I needed something new to do, and I failed at a couple things, and the candles didn't go so well the first time, but now they're great. So, it's just over time, and I get better at actually doing business and figuring out how things actually work. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was like, it's funny how it's come around to what I thought of when I was walking down 17th Avenue. And that's actually the direction that we're headed in now. And it's cool.
Do you give that any thought? Like, is it just, what is, like, how is that even?
I don't know. I do. I was going to write a thing about this on LinkedIn. It's like, I think one of the most important things about owning any kind of a small business or any kind of a career trajectory where you'd like to get through, which is like an ambition of yours, the most important thing is actually believing that you could be there, right? And so for me, each level it feels like each year is a new level because we're growing. But it's hard for me to think, like I said, 15 years out, because it's hard for me to imagine that I can be there or I'm worthy of it or whatever. Yep. But to think incrementally, like, okay, I can do this in 5 years for sure. I can see myself there, and I'm confident that I can get there. Mm-hmm. And so I'm a big believer in visualizing and working hard. So not just like dreaming about something and that's going to happen. Probably not. But if you dream about something, you actually can see yourself there and you work towards it, then you will inevitably, I believe, find yourself there.
When you say that, like seeing it, can you actually physically see your warehouse space being occupied by like 6 different categories and just like visualize how it, and see the packaging going out the door and understand, like that's how you
100%. There's a community center in the middle of a 20,000 square foot warehouse. Each business has its own mini house or place that it can live, but in the community centers where we all collaborate and people are key stakeholders for each business unit doing different things, and we share one design team. Like I have it figured out in my head. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but you can see it. I see that I'm going to be there. And when I thought about Friday Socko, it was really kind of silly. I was like, I imagined myself playing music loud, and it's fuzzy now, but I remember an exact moment where I'm sitting in an office, I'm playing music loud, I'm looking, and I have a couple people like helping and doing stuff and packaging orders. And that was like way back when I first started Friday. And it was a really like eerie moment when I was and I was like turning up the music, and I was like kind of looked around, and sure enough, there was like a couple people moving around, and I was like, holy crap, this is, I remembered what I had first thought of as an idea. So yeah.
And those little moments just catch you off guard.
Yeah.
Do they give you, do they kind of give you some like positive reinforcement that you're on the right path?
Yeah. It makes me think like, okay, dream bigger. Like, are you like materializing this? Is this just like something that happened at random? And it's like, is it deja vu? What is this? Like, but I don't know. Who knows?
But it's it can't be random. Here's the wild card though. And this is what I don't understand. Some people can visualize like you, right? And I feel like I'm the same way. I can like see things. That's how I kind of plan things. And they're actually like playing out.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does it happen for everybody, or is there a bunch of variables in place just because you see something and you don't get there? Like,
but maybe that's the thing where people do visualize, but they visualize coming home and making dinner and watching their favorite program and something else, right? Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. But I visualize like having a sock company where I'm playing music loud and like, but it also, I think, comes from, in my situation, I don't have other options. Like I don't have education or anything. Yeah. And so I have to like try to visualize some way to get to where I want to be. Right. Right. And if it sucks, it sucks. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's really weird though. Like I'm a big believer in it. Like I used to have a notebook when I was in Australia actually, where I'd like take a new thing, something easy, but I'd take a new like, one was a yin yang, and I was like, okay, I'm going to like think about this yin yang and try to like imagine that I've seen it and the feelings I have when I say it, all this stuff, right? And then sure enough, like the next day, the person at the hotel that's like taking my thing is like got a tie with the yin yangs all over it. I'm like, oh, okay. And I try to visualize something else, like practice it, right? Like a muscle almost, but there's something there for sure.
I agree. Yeah. And it's, again, right before we started talking, we were talking about like business plans and like, there's no right way to do this. Yeah. It's not only this. Everyone's kind of got their own version of how to make this happen. Yeah. And for some people it's having this like 50-page deck that they can work through and, it's their thing. Yeah. And, hearing your idea around seeing it and visualizing it, that's like, it makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. And some people will be like, how are you trusting these things that you're seeing and actually like working towards them? Like, yeah, just doesn't compute.
Yeah, it's weird. Like one of my best friends is he's an accountant. Like he's done really well in his career. He went through the CA program, all this stuff. Yeah. But like talking about stuff to him about what I'm up to or whatever is kind of, he's always like, well, what about like, have you thought about this? This is like, it'll be fine, right? Mm-hmm. And it's always fine,
It takes confidence to understand it's going to be fine, right?
Yeah, craziness.
It's a little bit of both, right? Yeah. Because I think that, the traditional, if a CA says that to you and be like, have you thought about, you're about to take on 47% more overhead and you're like, uh-oh. Yeah.
Are you sure? Like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Am I not seeing things? Yeah. Am I not understanding my business?
But then you do it and then something happens that you couldn't have known about was going to happen. Yeah. That's not true for everybody because people take on things and then it doesn't work out. Yep. But for me, in my personal situation, it seems like everything I think, really believe that I can do, or I can see myself sitting in a room doing that, I've been able to get to that. Mm-hmm. Now, the trick is I can't believe or see myself as an NBA player because I'll never do that. I think the key is that it has to be possible. You have to have the means to do it not the means to do it. You have to have the ability to do it, whether it's like physical or knowledgeable or whatever it is. Yep. But you have to actually truly believe and then put it to your subconscious and then you don't know the way, but the way finds you. Yep.
When did this click for you? To be able to articulate like that, it's you said it perfectly. When did this actually click for you as like, okay, this can be my thing. This can be, I understand how I operate.
Yeah. I think just through practice and reflection, right? Like, because every time you get somewhere, you look back and you kind of go, okay, how did I get here? And then that was it. It's like, oh, you visualize it. Okay. I was a big fan of it, not on a surface level of like just like dreaming your reality, but actually trying to work hard at uncovering the things that get you to the place where you want to be, one thing at a time. I think just through practice, just from doing it constantly. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you find that the more you do it, it's a little further. It's more top of mind. It's just, you understand that there's this place you got to get to and understand. Yeah. It's not so foreign anymore.
Yeah, it does. I think my brain stops me from doing it a lot too, because I'll dream a big dream and I'll try to get there. But like, sometimes I think my brain goes like, whoa, hold on. Like, this isn't, I don't know, it's hard to explain. Like, it's because if life was that easy, if you could just dream, work hard, and get to the things you wanted to get to, you could just have a pretty easy life. And I think that's possible, but there's some kind of switch in the brain that stops you from allowing yourself to believe that that is as easy as it can be, right? I guess it's faith, right? Like there's some reason, whether it's life experiences, maybe you're subconscious of your parents saying, oh, don't do that, or put that down, or that's hot, don't touch it. There's something there that kind of stops you from freely living as if you can achieve whatever, you desire, as long as it's good for all involved, right?
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's reason I'm on you on this, because it's like it occupies a lot of brain power for me.
Yeah.
I always catch myself thinking, like, is the way that I'm doing my thing, is it working? Does it make sense? Am I missing something? Am I doing it wrong? Do I need a plan? Do I need to schedule? So it's so different though.
It's crazy. Yeah. That's been my business plan, has been me thinking about where I want to be. And then obviously you got to think about how you can service customers, and you got to think about profit margin and stuff. But like, other than that, it's really just, I want to do something super creative, or I want to like explore the relationships of things through a product, and I want to be sitting somewhere where I have my own office, and then from there it's like, okay, well, now I want to build a culture, and I want to have a community center, and I can see myself there, and I can be playing basketball with a staff member, and we're doing something fun, whatever, right?
And that's an interesting, for the next phase, whatever. I don't know how you like.
Yeah, me neither.
Warehouse is like version 1, bigger warehouse 2.0, version 3 or whatever it is that has this focus on culture, more people, a community and stuff. That seems like a very interesting spot. Yeah.
I don't know. And it's changed too. You start out thinking, I want to earn money, I want to make a living. And then when you start doing that, then you go, okay, well, that's great. Money's great, but how can I impact actual people? Like, how can we give back to the community? And we've given back tons of money in the past 7 years. And then how can I impact people from a standpoint of coming to a place where they want to be, instead of being under the thumb of a corporate environment, and, being able to express themselves in a certain way, or live their life in a bit of a free way while they're earning a living for their family, right? Or themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then you become like the custodian of that, and you're like, okay, well, now that's more important to me. Money's still important because it's a business, but it's important to me to try to get really good people who want to, make a contribution, and then give them back in a way that is equal.
Yeah.
Right.
It gets way different though, right? Like, again, from, the focus is making money, paying the bills, getting a few more orders, and then all of a sudden it changes to this.
Yeah.
What is it? Is it just like stability? Is it understanding that the ship is going the right way, and you're kind of in a good spot, and now it's like...
Yeah, I think so. I think after I do remember every single month being like worried all the time, like every single month, okay, or even every quarter, like, okay, I always felt like I was I was a little kid wearing my dad's suit jacket, and I was like going like this, and the arms are like flailing around, like I'm just like, I'm not supposed to be here, or this isn't going to work. But then after 6-7 years, we have budgets now. Like we have marketing budgets, we have revenue we can depend on, and anything can go away in a day, but like by far and away, we're pretty good. We have lots of inventory. We're pretty good now for a while.
Yeah.
So then it becomes about other things.
Just new things.
New things
that kind of get you going, and actually, but at the root of it all those things, culture, and that builds everything. So as big as your ideas get, that foundation probably has to be there, which is...
Yeah. I mean, if you can, that's the thing. I have a peer group of business owners, and I know quite a few of them now. And that's the thing. If you can find your people, you can really make a splash. Like you can do a lot of good things if you find your people, for sure.
That's cool.
Yeah.
This has been really cool.
Yeah. No, time flies.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's been cool. You asked me before we started, like, have you heard of it? I was like, yeah. And I still don't, I just, maybe in the marketing world, or just being aware of, design things. Obviously I knew about it, but I still can't tell you the year. Like you say, a couple times, it's foggy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But definitely it's a brand that I know. And I think a lot of people obviously know now, because it's been around for a lot of years.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me.
I end the show with one question.
Yes.
When I say Calgary, where's your head go?
I think future. I mean, I think an entrepreneur. I think like this a young community and a vibrant community. Not doesn't have to be young. We are a young city, but like the vibrancy of this community. When I started Friday Socks, it was the reason I'm here is because the Calgary community went and bought really crappy designs from me that didn't really make a lot of sense, but they supported me because I was doing a small business. I don't know if that's true in other cities. I know from being here and knowing the people I know that it's hard to beat this city for building something and building a brand and trying to do something new for sure.
It's cool.
Yep.
Yeah, man, this has been, it's been really cool. It's so cool to hear, an owner like yourself, just to understand how you see things and what makes you tick. And that visualization thing is just like, all my lights are firing. So it's a really cool experience.
Yeah, for sure.
So thanks for taking the time.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, man.
Appreciate it.